Well, hello and welcome to My Heart on Pages. And guys, this is the first episode of 2024. So, Happy New Year! And I know you're probably wondering why is she saying Happy New Year? And this is like the end of March. That's because this is the first episode of 2024. And I am super excited to have an amazing guest with me today. So, for those of you who are wondering who I am Laquita Parks, and I am the CEO and founder of PayProV Publishing. And PayProV is pain, progress, victory, because I believe without pain, there is no progress, and without progress, there can be no victory. So, I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. And it has been an amazing journey. Listen, let me tell y'all something. 2023 was exceptional, but 2024 is going to blow your mind. We have some amazing things happening. There are some amazing stories being told. And listen, I have to tell you guys, your story matters. So if you think that your story doesn't matter, I am here to tell you that it does, because 100% of everybody living and dead has a story. Okay. So don't take for granted that your story doesn't matter, because it absolutely does. All right. So with that being said, let's get down to the get down. Okay. So I have an amazing person here. So I'm working on an anthology, and it's called Our Journey from Boys to Men, Things We Learned Along the Way. So about 20 to 22 men are telling their stories in this project, because I believe that there are young people, there are people who need to hear those stories, because like I just said, everybody has a story. But somebody is waiting on the other side of your story so they can get healing from their story. So one of the participants in this project is a good friend of mine. I've known him for a very long time. And I met him actually through my mother, but he didn't know it and I didn't either. All I knew is that my mom used to talk about this singing manager for years. And then fast forward, I started working with this person who's my guest. And I think we were out somewhere, and my mom was like, "That's the singing manager." And I was like, and she was like, "That's him. He's the singing manager." And I was like, had no clue. But you know what? I tell you, you got to talk about the goodness of God, because he makes it all happen. So without further ado, hey, sir, how you doing?
I am doing super and fantastic. Laquita, how are you this evening?
Good. It is so good to see you. We talk on the phone all the time. I think the last time I saw you, you were celebrating a special occasion, and it was a surprise. And I was so excited and so honored to be among that happy birthday surprise. So introduce yourself, tell the people who you are, and just a little bit about where you're from.
Well, again, thanks for having me on your show tonight, Laquita. For those who don't know, my name is Johnny Brown, and I've been in Atlanta. I came to Atlanta in 1976. Actually, I wanted to be a professional baseball player, and I actually got a scholarship to play baseball in Atlanta at Clark College. And so got here in 1976. I majored in mass communications, broadcast management, because in my way of thinking, I was going to become a professional baseball player. And then after playing 10, 15 years, I was going to retire and be a radio TV sportscaster. That's how I had my life planned out. So graduated. I was most valuable player on my team my junior and senior year in college. Scouts came to all of my games my senior year. I just knew I was going to get drafted. Graduated May of 1980. Went home, waited for the scout to call. May passed, scout didn't call. June passed, scout still hadn't called. And was talking to one of my friends one day, and he told me he had a job. And I said, "Where?" And he said, "Kroger." And I was like, "You mean the grocery store?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Man, I didn't go to college to work at no grocery store." And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Bagging groceries." I said, "I sure ain't bagging nobody's groceries." That's what I said at the end of June. But then June passed, July passed, and I graduated with honors in mass communication. So I decided, put my resume together. Maybe I can go down to all these radio and TV stations and try to get a job. Went down to all the radio and TV stations with my resume, and none of them would hire me because they said I did not have enough experience. So
Mm.
I got frustrated, and And I looked up and 6 months had passed, and the scout still hadn't called, and I still
Mm.
didn't have a job at a radio and TV station. So I called my friend back and asked him whether they still hiring. He said yes, and called and went out for an interview. The only job they had was
Bagging groceries.
bagging groceries, and I took that job, but it was at the Disco Kroger in Buckhead
Mhm.
because I didn't want any of my friends from the south side of town to see me bagging groceries.
So you said, I'm gonna
Yeah,
take this job, but I'm not gonna be
yeah,
where y'all can see me. I'm going across town.
right. Absolutely, absolutely. And I said I wasn't going to be at Kroger long. Uh, well, that's been 43 and a half years ago. And so I am still here. And it was through Kroger that I met Laquita back in 2006 when I went into the corporate office. And we actually sat right next to each other
Yeah.
for about the next 10, 12 years.
Wow,
And
Johnny, it's been 18 years.
18 years,
Oh my
18
goodness.
years.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
Absolutely.
goodness. You know what? I remember and so listen, y'all, we Johnny and I sat next to each other. So the one thing that was really, really wonderful, Johnny has always been that not hyper, but that uplifting person. He's always been it been the positive and uplifting and made for radio for real, y'all, because he can get you going. But the fun part was that Johnny loved to sing, and so did I. And so I think sometimes we would annoy them a little bit because he would be singing and I would be singing and we would be just going and just having a good time at work. And so I remember it's been when you work together and you get to know people, I got an opportunity to participate in a whole lot of things that Johnny was participating in, and I had a chance to meet Regina, his wife, I remember when we participated, and I brought my daughters, and we participated in the symphony orchestra. The Christmas holiday, and Regina and I sat next to each other, and man, we clowned and just had a good time. We had a good time. So you 43 years. You were just going this just for the summer. 43
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So what kept you at Kroger? What has kept you at Kroger for 43 years?
Ah, wow. Just the people. I grew up on a farm. Didn't know that growing up on a farm was going to be part of my life's journey. But grew up on a farm, and so I knew fruits and vegetables. As a matter of fact, I rode on the back of a truck when I was a kid, and I remember we would go to work on the farm, and then we'd go sell our wares.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I'd be on the back of that truck. Hey, ho, Georgia Plowboy, we got collard greens and pole beans. We got fresh tomatoes and sweet potatoes. We got watermelons. And I mean, we would do that when I was a kid. But anyway, didn't plan on staying at Kroger long, but worked as a courtesy clerk for about 3 weeks. Then they promoted me to a cashier, and then they put me on the overnight stock crew. And I looked up, 9 years later, and I was still with Kroger. And because I had a degree, I decided to go into management. And
Mhm.
I was an assistant manager for about 2.5 years and got my first store back in 1992 on Old National Highway off Godby Road. And I was ran that store for about a year and a half. And I just fell in love with the people,
Mhm.
the associates, the customers, and the communities. Um, that we served in. And I remember, partnering with a lot of schools when I was a store manager, because I knew that if you got to know the children, their parents would bring them to the grocery store. And so I partnered with a lot of schools, and that's how I guess I met Laquita's mom.
Yeah.
She heard me sing at one of the school programs
Yeah. Yeah.
as a store manager, but just fell in love with that. And then, my second store was on Stewart Avenue, first at the first city center store that Kroger opened, and loved that. And then I got a chance to open my first brand new store over on Cascade Road. And was there from 1995 to 2000. Had a lot of incredible things happen to me and the community
Mm-hmm.
when I was at that store. One of my baseball heroes, Hank Aaron, cut the ribbon when
Mm-hmm.
I opened that store, and that was a huge treat. And then in 2000, we bought the Brunos 40 miles down the road,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a chance to open my second brand new store. But as fate would have it, I was going to a church, Philadelphia Baptist Church. Philadelphia happened to be 2 miles from the Kroger on Cascade and Donnelly, and 2 miles from the Kroger at 285 in Cascade.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess God had a plan for me to be able to work in the community where I worshiped.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that was less than 2 miles from where I went to college, Clark College. So I got a chance to hire a lot of young people while I was at both stores that, able to give a lot of people jobs. And so it's just, working in the community just meant a lot to me. So, I found myself here still at Kroger 43 years later.
And you know what? The one thing that I can say so many great things, but community. You have always been about community. From the first time I met you, and you actually got me into community. Before I started with Kroger, I worked in the school system, and I left the school system and I came to Kroger. Kroger was my first corporate job, and I came in there temporary as a temp, and I came for a season, came back in gift services, and then I came back the second year, and then the third, they didn't have any positions open, and I called and I said, okay, they didn't have any positions available for the season, and because they had already hired all their people, and somebody called me and said, hey, somebody wants you to call, Carla wants you to call her, and I was like, for what? So I think they need people, and I was like, well, no, I already talked to her. And so talk about the goodness of God. And she called me, and the person that was supposed to start, I think they didn't pass their drug screening or something happened. They couldn't come in. So they called me, and I came in, and 15 years later, I was still there 15 years later because they hired me permanently. And when you say you fell in love with the people, you are absolutely right. Because that's what when you are there, there are people who have different experiences, and there are people who I believe that you get out of the world what you put into the world. Now granted, so before y'all start jumping on me, I know that it rains on the just and the unjust. It good things happen to bad people just like bad things happen to good people, so don't y'all jump on me. But when you give good things, you tend to get good things back. And working at Kroger, for me, I met a lot of great people. And Johnny, you were one, because we had an opportunity to do a lot of great things together in the community. And I would be like, okay, wherever Johnny Brown's going, I'm going. And every single time I said, Johnny, can you? He was like, yes. When I went to a school, when I was out in the school, yes. When I started doing my mentoring programs, yes. And then you introduced me to Legal Shield, this thing called Legal Shield, and it was just another extension of community work, because here is somebody, guys, who really really cares about people. And listen, I know where he got it from too. I remember when Sandra and I went to your dad's services, and I heard you say he would take you guys here and here and here, and you would be saying, well, we always gotta go, and your dad used to say, if we don't hope them, nobody will hope them. And so I read that in your submission. So I know I'm all over the place, y'all, because I'm just trying to get it in. But I read that in your submission, and it took me back there. So tell me about why working with communities, and because you honestly, you can go somewhere else and work. You know what I'm saying? You can work somewhere else, but Kroger, you can say what you want to say about Kroger, but Kroger does a great job with community. They try to reach out to the community and pairing their people with people in the community. So they open that door to be able to do that. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So, but you've created a whole leg out, in Kroger, outside of Kroger, with your church, with the community. Why is that important for you to do that?
Well, growing up in the country, my mom and dad, they took us to church first and foremost. It was not an option. There were no questions. Are you going to church? We went to church every Sunday. And back then in the country, we actually, we were only our church only met once a month because a lot of the pastors had more than one church. So
Mm.
when our church wasn't meeting, we would go to another church. So every Sunday, we went to a different church. But what really got us started in the community, our parents taught us to sing when we were kids. And so they would take us around to sing at different churches. And then my mom and dad started doing this Wednesday night prayer meeting. It first started at our house. And then my mom said, there are people that can't get to church. Let's go have prayer meeting at their house. And so literally every Wednesday night we would go have prayer meeting at somebody who was either sick and shut in. And so then we went from there to we went to the boys the home for bad boys, well, the detention center. We used to go
Mm.
sing at the detention
Mhm.
center,
Mhm.
and then we would go to the senior high rises and the old folks home, and we would go in. Every week we were somewhere trying to sing, and my dad would always take bags of fruit. Again, getting back to this grocery thing, my dad would always take bags of fruits and mints. And after we would sing, he would give them fruit, bag of mints. And you could see the joy in these people's faces from, having somebody that would one come in and sing and spend time with them, and then to give them bags of fruit.
Mhm.
And that meant a whole lot to them. So that was ingrained into all of us as kids.
Mhm.
And so when I got to the Kroger on Cascade, I believe we were one of the first, I was the first store that actually had a community services director.
Mm.
And her name was Sherry Harge. And Sherry, one of my best friends in life, Sherry put me in places. She made us scary, and when I should have been at the store, she said, "Now you got to go sing at this program. Now you got to go speak at this program." And so she actually had me out in the community at Cascade. We were partnered with 16 schools at
Mm.
one time,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it was it was great. And I remember we built the first Kroger store inside one of the elementary schools.
Mhm.
It was at Gideon's Elementary. When
Mhm.
we built a store and stocked it with groceries and went in and taught the kids how to run the registers, and it became it was work, but it was fun work.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
so it was amazing. I remember when the Olympics came in 1996, and they had this program. The Olympics put on the program for the school that could sell the most commemorative bricks. You would win tickets to the Olympics. Now, we were competing against schools out in Buckhead, schools in Cobb County, schools all over the state of Georgia. And so I took that to my schools, and it was amazing that the school that sold the most commemorative bricks was 1 mile from the Kroger store on Cascade.
Mhm.
It was F.L. Stanton.
Which is where
And
you
we
met my
started,
mom.
which
That was
is where I met your mom.
yeah.
And to be able to have Izzy, the Olympic
Yep.
mascot, come to the school, and they got a chance to dance and play with him. But even bigger, we won 300 tickets to the Olympic Games.
Mm.
And so kids who probably would have never
Mhm.
got a chance to go to the Olympics got a chance to go to the Olympics, the track meet. Some went to the swim meets, but they were there when the guy with the gold shoes set the Olympic record. I mean, it was
Mhm.
just amazing. And so, um, just being able to touch people in the community has always meant a lot to me.
You know what, and I know this to be fact. So and every time I don't recall you ever saying no for anything I've ever asked. Johnny, I'm doing this project. I'm forever doing projects because I love people and I'm all about the story. And so little did I know, if somebody told me 5 years ago that I would be sitting here as the CEO and founder of a publishing company, I would have been like, no, because that was not my plan. It was, and Johnny, you know this, that was never, you never heard me say, hey, I want to be a publisher. You never even heard me say I want to write a book, and I've written 15 books. I'm a three-time international best-selling author. That was never ever that was never on my to-do list, on my goal sheet, never ever. But here I am. But God, here I am. So, but I don't recall ever asking you to participate in something and you said no. And so here we fast forward to our journey from boys to men. And I know people's like, Laquita's always coming up with something. She always got a thought with something. So I naturally thought of my friend Johnny Brown, and it's because you have two amazing sons and you do a lot in the community. You're in, and even with Kroger, you've been a mentor, you're a manager, you've been in management training. I've seen you mentor the kids that used to come in to shadow and be management trainees and come in and they would sit. And I remember being asked to go over and guide some of them, and I enjoyed every bit of that. So I pick up the phone and I say, or I text and say, hey, I got this project I'm working on. Can I count on your help? So what were you thinking when you was like, okay, here she go again? So what are your thoughts about this anthology? How do you feel? This will be your first, you will be a published author. And that's amazing. Amazing. So what did you think when I said, Johnny, can you participate in yet something else?
Well, when you first approached me with it, I did say yes, and but I was so busy, busy, busy. But God has a way of slowing you down, so you can do the things that you thought you could not do.
Well,
Uh,
wait,
so
Johnny, what was funny when I asked you, I remember you said you had to have some surgery on some carpal tunnel surgery. And you said, he said, I gotta have carpal tunnel surgery. And I said, well, you don't have to write, you can dictate it. I said, you don't have
yeah,
to write,
yeah,
you can dictate it to
yeah,
your phone. You can just speak it. Just remember to
and
put your punctuations in.
you are absolutely right because carpal tunnel surgery in my right hand, and I am right-handed. Um, but one day, after I had said yes, I think I called you one day and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. And when I started writing it, I think I wrote it all in one day. I wrote my story all in one day because when I got started on it, I had a lot to say, and so I was honored that you asked me, um, and the title, our journey from boys to men, and I know everybody has a different journey, and you know, uh, I was fortunate to have a father in my life, most of my adult life, and my father, everything I learned from my father, and not only my father. I had a great father-in-law after I met my wife, who gave me some life lessons as well. So I've had great men in my life that have, taught me, and more than taught me, they showed me
Mhm.
um, how to be a man, and what being a man is all about. My dad was a brick mason by trade, and I remember him always doing projects for other people, always, and he would take us with him out there in the hot sun, or when it was cold, and we would dig those ditches and mix that mortar mix, and I remember the story that I think taught me so much about what life is all about is I worked with my dad this whole week. We were underpinning this house, and underpinning is when people, they have houses, but they were sitting on blocks, and then you would underpin them with bricks. So in the wintertime, it wouldn't be so cold in the house, and
Mm.
because the wind would blow straight up. And I remember my dad, and we worked that whole week hard. It was hot. We worked hard, and I was excited about getting paid at the end of that week. And so my dad had told him, this is what it go cost. And I remember clearly him said, Joe, I showed my dad's name was Joseph, and they called him Joe. I said, Joe, I appreciate you doing this, but just right now I ain't got the money to pay you. And I was mad.
No,
We had worked all week long,
y'all didn't know y'all didn't have the
and
money before
yeah,
we got through the
and
end of the week.
hello, a lot of stuff was going through my mind. And I remember when getting in the car, and I said, Daddy, we don't work all week long, and they ain't gonna pay you nothing. And my dad looked at me, and he said, baby, sometimes we just have to hope them.
Sometimes we just have to hope.
And I remember that, him saying that. And you know, and I saw him do that so many times. And it so it taught me that we have to hope people.
Yes,
He didn't say help them. He
hope
said
them,
hope them.
hope them.
And the Bible says, people without hope
They don't
are
have,
lost.
they don't have
So,
anything.
so, so again, yeah, that was the lesson that my dad taught me through. He taught me through what he did, and he did this. He was a deacon in the church, um, and it wasn't that just that one time that he didn't get paid, but he always, did the work. He always
And
did the work.
that is so, that's so important. That's an important lesson, that, and you talk about that in your story. That is so important because there are so many people looking for a payday. And if they don't think they're going to get paid, they stop doing the job in the middle of whether they think they're going to get paid or not. But I know, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God provides, because you and I both have done a whole lot of work for a whole lot of nothing. And God has
Mm,
not skipped on us in the blessing department.
absolutely
He has
not.
not. He
Absolutely.
has it. And when you're helping people and you're doing it, I always say, when you're doing it from the right place, don't worry about anything. God will provide for you. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. When I read your submission, there were some things that I knew and some things that I don't, but that was a lesson. And I thought that was such a beautiful lesson. Such a beautiful lesson. I love that. I'm teaching in my Bible study class I teach ladies Bible study class on Wednesdays, and the lesson is hope. And we're talking
Mm,
about hope. And you can never ever have enough lessons on hope. And
right.
so I really, really enjoy. Your good job. I really, really enjoyed your submission. Now let me ask you something else. What is your thoughts on what you're seeing in the world? I know you work in the grocery store industry, and you're seeing those men who need. The Bible says there are some of us who need to go back to milk. We need to, we're still babes in Christ. We haven't grown. What do you think about a lot of the men that you're seeing now who desire milk now? They need to go back and have somebody to teach them how to be a man. What are your thoughts? And I know you had, and understanding that everybody didn't have their father, and you have two sons, and you have grandchildren. So, what are your thoughts on what you're seeing?
Well, I mean, the world has changed so drastically because of the lack of fathers in the homes. I mean, it is, we see it every day. We hear it every day. Nothing against mothers, But God, gave the instruction to men to be the
Absolutely.
leaders, to be the providers, and that's the one thing my dad did. He provided for us. Even those days when we worked all week and he didn't get paid, we never went hungry. We never went hungry. We never went without a meal. Um, but yeah, and the workforce now is so drastically different,
Mhm.
so drastically different.
Mhm.
But we still can lead by our actions. And so when we see young men, um, we just try to give them some hope,
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
my daddy would say. Um, I never thought I would stay in the grocery business this long. But I tell people all the time, it's the one thing that as long as I do my job, I'm gonna have a job because
Mhm.
everybody's got to eat.
That's right.
And there are more careers probably out in the grocery industry than a lot of others,
Mhm.
because when the whole world shut down,
People.
4 years ago, where did everybody come to? The grocery store. I mean, if they couldn't go nowhere else, because people have got to eat.
Mhm.
And so when they're there, you have an opportunity to show them that there are things that you can do to make it when people when a lot of uh, the icon the econ jobs shut down, when the electricity goes off, where do they come? To the grocery store. When there's a tornado, where do they come? To the grocery
Grocery
store.
store.
When there's a hurricane, where do they come?
To the
To the
grocery
grocery store. So there's opportunities to provide for your family. And the CEO of Kroger made $23 million last year. So, we don't think about it, but there are a lot of careers where people. It wasn't me. I just said the CEO. Uh,
Hey,
but
understand.
God has provided for me and my family, been able to raise our kids, all because of the grocery store.
Mhm.
But it's like you said, you see so many kids out there that just didn't have that leadership role
Mhm.
in their families. So I think what you did with this book is going to allow people to see stories of people with different backgrounds, and they can share how they made it.
Mhm.
The one thing you've always said, once you told me you were going to be a publisher,
Mhm.
is you said everybody has a story. And that is so true. Everybody has a story. And so you're giving people the opportunity to share their story, how they became, the journey from boys to men. So I'm glad that you asked me to participate in this. Um, and, hopefully something that is in my story will touch somebody, that they can be a better father, they can be a better brother, they can be a better husband, they can be a better coworker,
Mhm.
because people need examples.
Mhm.
People need examples of how to live in this world that is ever changing. And
Mhm.
so hopefully something that I shared in my story will touch somebody and say, I can too.
You know
All
what?
because
You answered my last question. I was going to ask you what is your anticipated outcome from this book, and you just answered it. I appreciate that. The time just flies by so fast. It does
right.
fly by so fast. So Johnny, I'm going to ask you one more question, and it's a tip of the tongue question. If there is one thing that you can do that you haven't already done to make a difference in this world, what would it be?
Hmm. Just continue to try to point people in the right direction, um, and give them hope,
Give.
uh, and give them hope, because this world seems to be void of hope right now. I
Yeah.
mean, every time you turn on the TV, somebody's being shot, somebody's being murdered, somebody's being robbed, and and there is still a lot of real great things going on in this world,
Hmm.
and we
Hmm.
get blindsided by all the negativity. And that's the one thing that I've tried to do, in my life. It's shared some positivity
Mhm.
um, uh, through the way that I live, or even through words. I remember, and this I'll share this story. I started sending out positive quotes at Kroger,
Mhm.
and somebody came to me one day and said, "Johnny, I love you like a brother, but you just can't send out some of those quotes because, they seem a little religious, um,
I remember that.
and yeah, they seem a little religious, and you just can't do that." And I was like, "Wow." Um, but God always has a ram in the bush,
Mhm.
because the president came back to me and said, "Johnny, you send out whatever you want to send out. And if somebody got a problem, you tell them to let me know."
Absolutely.
And so, you know, um, I was able to send out positive quotes on a continual basis. And I've been in stores, and people would say, "Oh my God, so glad to meet you. All the quotes you sent out, I print them out, and I got them at my house. I got them on my mirror in my home. I sent them to my kids." And so, again, that came from what my mom and dad taught us to always try to be positive in everything you do.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much. And I can definitely attest to that. I can. I just want to say thank you so much for what you've been to my life and my children, and being there for them when they were not at their best, and giving them the space and the encouragement, and the foresight to know that just because you're here right now does not mean this is where you stay. And I appreciate that, because we've all gone through some things with our families, with our children, and they get better. I have three amazing children, and they weren't always amazing. They had amazing potential, but they had to find out. And so I
Mm.
appreciate you for being one of those people to be there, without fail. So I thank you for that. And so, Johnny, tell people how they can reach you. And when we get ready to pre-order this book, tell them how they can find you and order a copy of this book from you.
Oh well, they can. They can reach me anyway. Just ask anybody who is uptown, downtown, all around town, Johnny Brown. But you can. I have. They can send me. They can email me. I'm on Facebook, and I can give my phone number out. My phone number is 404-583-8870. My email is jbbiffle@aol.com. That's jbbiffle@aol.com. And again, like I said, you can reach me on Facebook or on Messenger. So it's real easy to find Johnny Brown, and hopefully you'll get a copy of the book, not just because of me, because there, like she said, there's I think 20,
21
22,
men.
21 different men, and I know a couple of them. I talked to Donald Davis today.
Yeah.
And Donald, and so again, hopefully you'll get a copy of the book, and maybe it'll be a help to somebody in your life. Um,
Yes.
and
Well,
That's
Johnny,
it.
thank you so much. I appreciate you for saying yes two times, for saying yes to be my guest tonight, and for saying yes for the anthology. Our journey from boys to men, things we learned along the way, will officially launch on Father's Day. So look for it soon. We're going to do a pre-sale, pre-orders. You can get your pre-order soon. And listen, it is going to be amazing. These men are telling their own personal stories, and everybody's walk is different. Everybody's walk is different, but we all have a walk. And so they are telling their stories in their way. And I am super excited to be the visionary on this project. I'm blessed. I'm honored, and I'm blessed to be a part of this. So listen, guys, remember that you are important. Remember that your stories are important. There are going to be people who are going to say, oh, it doesn't matter. If I were you, I wouldn't tell my business. Well, listen, you deserve to sleep at night, because sometimes there are people who are the villains in our story, and you deserve to sleep comfortably just like they sleep comfortably. So your story is your story. And if you want to tell your story, you have an overwhelming desire to tell your story, find somebody you can trust. Listen, I'm a publisher, and if I can help you, please feel free to reach out to me at payprovipublishing.com. That's PAPROVI publishing.com. But listen, if it's not me, find somebody that you can trust to share your story, because sharing your story is therapeutic. And like I said before, 100% of everybody living and dead has a story. And there is somebody waiting on the other end of your story so they can get healing from their story. See, they may not know that it's your story that they're looking for, but when they get your story, when they pick your story up, when they have your story in their hand and they start to read your story, this person look familiar? When they start to read your story, they're going to be like, this is just what I needed. So, listen, guys, thank you so much again to my guest, Johnny Brown. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. This is not the last time you guys will see him. He will be around. Listen, it has been a plump, pleasing pleasure, better than a triple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. You guys have an amazing day. And until next time, be blessed in everything that you do. I love you. Not a thing you can do about it.